Have you ever felt that something greater was shaping the events around you, as if invisible forces were acting to test or strengthen you? This feeling of a hidden purpose is something many of us have experienced, especially in times of crisis. And sometimes, these crises are not just challenges of the physical world. They can be reflections of spiritual battles unfolding around us, even if we cannot see them. Today, I want to share with you a story that not only changed my life, but also opened my eyes to a reality I never imagined could be so clear and tangible. My name is Lucas Silva, and since childhood I have always been fascinated by fire. Not in the dangerous sense of playing with it, but something deeper, almost reverent. I grew up in a small town surrounded by mountains where wildfires were common events. My father was a firefighter, a man of unwavering courage who faced the flames with impressive calmness. He used to say that fire had a duality. It could destroy, but it could also purify. This stayed with me, and when I turned 21, I followed in his footsteps by joining the fire department. For 2 decades, my life was dedicated to saving people from the destructive grasp of fire. Every call was an opportunity to make a difference, to protect lives, and to be a beacon of hope amidst chaos. But in recent years, something changed. The fires became more intense, larger, and more unpredictable. What was once a fire season transformed into an almost permanent state of alert. Entire communities were swept away in a few hours, leaving a trail of destruction. I constantly wondered, why? Was it just a consequence of climate change, or was something more happening? This doubt began to weigh on my soul, especially during the catastrophic fires of 2026. Those fires were not just devastating, there was something almost alive in them. It was as if the flames had an intention, targeting directly the vulnerabilities of people and communities. On the morning of August 8th, we were on high alert. A monstrous fire was devastating a mountainous region of the state. Our team had been sent to assist with evacuation efforts. The heat was suffocating, the air thick with the smell of smoke, and the sky tinged with an oppressive orange made it seem like the world was on the brink of apocalypse. The operation was going as planned until we received an urgent call. A small village was in imminent danger. People were being evacuated, but many still remained, trapped by fear or the inability to leave their homes. We arrived at the location and split into teams to search each house. Most residences were empty, but in one of them, we found an elderly couple. The woman held a box of mementos against her chest, while the husband, with tears in his eyes, begged us to help save their belongings. I tried to convince them that their lives were more important than any material object. After much persistence, we managed to take them to a safe place. It was at that moment that I felt a change in the wind, both literally and spiritually. The fire seemed to gain strength, as if responding to something invisible. We continued the search and found more families, including a single mother with 3 small children. They were terrified, unable to react, and we took precious time to calm them and get them out. But as we did this, the fire began to surround the village at an alarming rate. The radio crackled with voices of other team members reporting similar situations. The fire was moving too fast, defying all our predictions. There was something inexplicable happening, something I felt deeply in my soul. When we finally returned to the truck to leave the area, we realized that the fire had blocked the main road. There was nowhere to go. We were trapped, and the smoke began to become unbearable. I prayed silently, asking God to help us. Amidst the chaos, I saw something I will never forget. For a brief moment, in the dancing flames that surrounded us, I perceived dark shapes, indistinct figures that seemed to move within the fire. They were not human, but they were also not just shadows. There was a malignant intention in them, something that made me feel we were facing more than a physical fire. My partner in the truck shouted for me to focus, but that vision stayed with me. Soon after, Everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I didn't know where I was. It was not the physical world I knew. Around me was an intense light, but not blinding. It was a light that seemed alive, pulsating with an energy that completely enveloped me. For the first time in years, I felt an indescribable peace, a total absence of fear or doubt, but at the same time, there was a presence. I cannot fully describe it, but it was something familiar and comforting, as if I were facing a truth I had always known, but never fully understood. This presence began to manifest more clearly. I did not see a face, but I felt a love so deep and pure that it seemed to fill every part of my being. And then a voice spoke, not with audible words, but directly into my consciousness. "Lucas, you have a mission." These words echoed within me with a force I had never felt before. They were not just a command, but a revelation. I was being called to something greater, something that transcended what I could understand at that moment. The light around me began to change, and suddenly I was looking at the world I had left behind. I saw the fires again, but this time with spiritual clarity. Within the flames, the shadows that were previously indistinct now appeared as malicious figures, feeding on destruction. It was as if the fires were physical reflections of an ongoing spiritual battle. These entities were not just spectators, they were actively amplifying chaos and destruction. The fire was not just a natural phenomenon, it was a manifestation of something much deeper and darker. The presence spoke again. "Lucas, you must tell the world what you saw. What is happening is not just a fight against fires, but against spiritual forces that have been feeding on people's disconnection from truth, faith, and love." I felt an overwhelming weight of these words, but also a growing determination. I knew this message was not just for me. It was for everyone ready to listen and awaken to a deeper reality. As the vision continued, I realized I was not just receiving a message, but also a call to understand what was before me. The dark figures in the flames were not just evil entities, they symbolized something greater, a spiritual corruption deeply rooted in the world. This revelation hit me hard, as if a curtain was being pulled back before my eyes, allowing me to see what was previously invisible. As I looked at the fires, I saw connections that went beyond the physical. Each blaze seemed to be anchored at a specific point of spiritual darkness, as if something was feeding those flames. It was a vision that blended the physical with the spiritual, and I realized that the fires were not just natural disasters. They were manifestations of choices made over generations. A cycle of selfishness, apathy, greed, and fear had created the perfect conditions for that spiritual destruction to spread. The presence beside me began to speak again, this time with an even more urgent tone. "Lucas, the fires you see are more than physical destruction. They are reflections of the spiritual state of my people. For generations, many have turned away from me, choosing comfort over conviction, self-interest over sacrifice, and fear over love. These choices have created a void, a darkness that now manifests tangibly." As I listened, I began to understand that this message was not just about the fires themselves, but about something much greater. It was a warning, a call for people to return to the light and the truth. The presence continued. "You have been chosen to be a witness, to share what you saw and help people understand that this battle is not just physical but spiritual. They need to wake up before it is too late." The vision changed again, and now I saw points of light scattered around the world. There were not many, but each one shone brightly. These points represented people who remained faithful, who lived with love, faith, and purpose. Around these points of light, the flames could not advance as easily. It was as if the faith and connection of these people created a spiritual barrier that weakened the destructive power of the dark forces. "There is still hope," said the presence with a determined tone. These lights show that not everything is lost. Where there is love, where there is faith, darkness cannot prevail. But time is running out. The world needs to understand that each individual's choices have a much greater impact than they imagine. At that moment, I felt a mix of emotions. There was hope, but also an overwhelming sense of urgency. How could I share something so grand and profound with the world? Who would believe me? These doubts began to arise, but before they could overwhelm me, the present spoke again. Lucas, it is not your job to control who believes or not. Your task is to be faithful. Tell them what you saw, and trust that the message will reach those who are ready to hear. As these words echoed within me, I felt the vision begin to fade. The light around me started to dim, and the sensation of absolute peace was gradually replaced by the weight of my physical body. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the material world, lying on a stretcher, surrounded by paramedics and fellow firefighters. My mind was in a whirlwind, trying to process everything that had happened. The following days were challenging. As I recovered in the hospital, the images and words from the vision remained vivid in my mind. It was not something I could ignore or forget. I knew I needed to share what I had seen, but fear and uncertainty kept me silent. How could I explain something so beyond human understanding? And what if people thought I was delirious or making it all up? My wife, Anna, was the first person I shared the experience with. After much hesitation, I told her about the vision, about the figures in the flames, and about the calling I received. I waited for a reaction of disbelief, but to my surprise, she held my hand and said, "I believe you. What you're saying makes sense. There is something wrong in the world, and perhaps your experience is what we need to understand it." Her words gave me the courage to take the next step. I began to share my story with close friends and then with my community. I was met with a mix of reactions. Some believed immediately, while others expressed skepticism. There were those who said my vision was just a result of trauma or exhaustion, but even in the face of doubts, I continued to tell my story, trusting that it would reach those who needed to hear it. Over time, the message began to spread. Local churches invited me to speak, and soon the story reached a larger audience. I emphasized that the fires were a warning, an invitation for people to return to faith and love. It was not a message of condemnation, but of hope. The world might seem dark, but the light was still present, waiting to be ignited within each of us. Every time I shared the message, I saw small signs of transformation. Families began to pray together again, communities united to help one another. People who were once consumed by fear and despair found strength in faith. The change was slow but palpable, like a small flame growing into a blaze of light. The spiritual impact also began to manifest physically. In areas where communities gathered in prayer and unity, wildfires were contained more easily. It was as if the darkness was being pushed back, not just by human actions, but by a greater force responding to people's faith and love. But it was not easy. There were moments when the weight of the message felt overwhelming. I questioned whether I was doing enough or if my story was truly making a difference. On such days, I remembered the words of the presence in the vision. Be faithful. The rest is not in your hands. These words became my mantra, helping me move forward even when doubts threatened to stop me. Now, I am here, sharing this story with you, not because it is easy, but because I know it is necessary. The fires we face, both in the physical and spiritual worlds, are a call to awaken. They remind us that our choices have consequences and that it is never too late to change. Time is short, but as long as there is light, there is hope. And that light can begin with you. The message I received that day was not just for me. It was a call for all of us, a call to reflect on our choices, on the priorities we set, and on the impact our lives have on the world around us. The fires we face whether physical or spiritual, are a powerful reminder that a battle is taking place. A battle that goes far beyond what we can see or touch. When we look at the chaos that often seems to dominate the world, it is easy to feel powerless. But the truth is that each of us has a role to play. Just like the points of light I saw during my vision, our actions, no matter how small they may seem, have a profound impact. A prayer, an act of kindness, a decision to live with integrity. All of these contribute to pushing back the darkness and bringing hope to those around us. I remember the words I heard in the vision when I asked how I could make a difference. The answer was clear. Tell the truth and trust the outcome. It is not our job to change hearts or control how people will react. Our job is to be faithful, to share the light we have received, and to trust that it will find those who are ready to receive it. Since I began sharing my story, I have seen changes that have given me hope. People who were distant from their faith began to return. Families that were fragmented found ways to reconnect. Communities that seemed divided by conflicts and distrust started working together for a greater good. These changes are not quick or perfect, but they are real. And they remind me that even in the darkest moments, there is always a path to the light. If you are reading this now, I want you to know that you are also part of this story. No matter where you are or what you have faced, there is a light within you that can make a difference. You may feel small or insignificant in the face of the world's challenges, but let me assure you, you are not alone. When we come together, our individual lights become a powerful flame, capable of pushing back even the densest darkness. The fires we face are a warning, but also an opportunity. They call us to rethink our lives, to choose faith, love, and truth above all else. Each of us has the ability to be a point of light in the midst of darkness, and together we can create a world where destruction and chaos do not have the final word. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to take action. Do not wait for a perfect moment or ideal conditions. Start now, where you are with what you have. Pray, connect with those around you, live with purpose. And above all, share this light with the world. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it inspires you to find your own flame. If this message touched your heart, I ask that you share it with others. Let us together spread this truth and create a movement of hope and faith. The time to act is now, and the choice is in our hands. May God bless you, and remember, no matter how dark the night may seem, there will always be light, and that light can begin with you.